Now, and you have two agents, VJ and Faisal. So now, I could decide my skills based on the expertise level of the individual. So let's say VJ is expert on CCVP and CCIE, and I am maybe just EC resource kit. Okay, but I have some knowledge of CCVP. So maybe I can back up VJ on CCVP. So my primary responsibility is EC resource kit to provide support for that product. But if I'm not busy, I could provide a backup support for VJ on CCVP. But VJ will be the primary for CCVP and CCIE. And he could act as a backup for EC resource kit. So how do I design this? Simply, when you create Faisal and you say, okay, assign Faisal to a skill set called UC kit with the number 10. Assign VJ to this with the number 9.
Weighted.
Preference. Weighted, yeah. And then assign Faisal to this as a number 9. Assign VJ to this with 10. This with 10. So now, you can then decide route calls to this queue based on highest number or based on lowest number. And the call will flow accordingly. Okay? This is more complex but more scalable. An agent can belong to multiple, can be resourced from multiple products, or it can be responsible for individual product. Okay? So that is the most common deployment in the real world. But however, if your contact center is small, which is does not contain too many skills, then you can probably go the resource group. You just create a group called sales and support. Put VJ into support, Faisal into sales. That's it. And then decide the sender call is for the support call, send it to support queue. For sales calls, send it to sales queue. So once the user account are listed into contact center because of the IPCC extension check, you will then create a resource or group or skills based on that formula and assign the user to those groups. You say Faisal belong to support, VJ belong to sales. And then, how do you assign those users? Where do you assign the user? Users are responsible for what?
Your extension.
No, users are responsible for what? What is the agent sitting there doing?
Answering
To
the
receive
call.
calls. From where?
Outside. Anywhere.
From where?
Anywhere.
Outbound.
Anywhere.
Coming
From
in.
the queue.
Coming in.
Call comes to queue. Nobody's, if agent is available, the call goes to queue. Of course, the call from the queue is coming from the customer. So now, you need to make that queue. The queue has to be designed. So after you define the group and the skills, you create a queue, and this queue name is called CSQ or Contact Service Queue. This is the main component of your script, where the call goes to for temporarily if agents are not available. Then the queue will be associated with the script that you write, and then the script, you need to create an application to trigger the script. So this is the formula. So you create the resource or skills, assign them to the queue gets assigned to the script. The script will be called based on an application. What is the name of the application? Help desk, customer service, CSR, maybe tax center, whatever, right? Now how do you call this script or application? Who triggers it? The application is triggered only when somebody dials something. Agree?
Menu.
That is called the trigger. You cannot fire a bullet unless you pull the trigger, right? Unless you go, it doesn't work. You gotta pull the trigger to fire the bullet. So same thing, you gotta pull the trigger to call the application, which in return call the script, which in return looks at the queue, which in return see who's available. Agree? So that's the connectivity between them. So the trigger, there are two types of trigger you have in, three types of trigger you have. HTTP and JTAP. And now I have an email trigger. HTTP trigger is like when you want to call the script from a web page. www.voicebootcamp.com/callme. That call me will then immediately take the phone number from your form that you fill it up, send the calls to the agent. Agent will look at the call, click on the number, call goes out to the engineer. It can be done. I've shown an example on my EC resource kit how to receive data from the agent, from the web page, from a user, process the data and push it back to the agent. To the caller with a coloring format. Alright, so that is HTTP trigger. What about JTAP trigger? JTAP trigger is a number, the phone numbers you dial. And what is email trigger? Email trigger is like this. When you send an email to support@voicebootcamp.com, usually somebody has to have their IMAP client open, their Outlook open, pull the email response to it, right? But generally you can only probably have one Outlook, one account. Agree? What the email trigger can do is that the call will come to support.voicebootcamp.com. The contact center will monitor the email. Any email comes into the account, will push it to the available agent on their CAD, the Cisco Agent Desktop application, which will be installed on the PC of the agent. So these are the 3 different triggers that you can use. Now, of course, for this, you need a special license. Okay, you need a special license. So when you create the trigger, where would that trigger be registered?